Hello everyone and welcome. Sit back, relax, make a cup of tea or whatever you like to drink and get ready for new stories from YellowCat. Send your own favorite stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. So subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. Let's get started. Has anyone ever furiously quit their job? Why? Did this have any unintended consequences? Part 4. Worked as a contractor at a small law firm, probably so the firm wouldn't have to pay taxes, provide benefits, pay unemployment, etc. I was given a new case to work on by myself one afternoon. The boss has a meeting with the staff the next day. After that, he asks me all the details about my new case, such as different due dates and other information. I hadn't thought much about that because other cases were more important, so I say something like, I don't know offhand, or I'll have to look that up. In front of the whole team, my boss makes fun of me and scolds me. The next day at work, I missed the morning meeting because my car had a gas leak. My boss wants me to take an Uber to work and write up the work I do on the car. I talked to a family friend who works in employment law instead. Most likely, the law would see me as an employee instead of a contractor, which means I would get unemployment benefits as long as I didn't quit but was fired. Since I'm a contractor, I'd like to work from home, I told my boss in an email. I'll charge you X amount of dollars per hour for my time. The boss replied, no, you're no longer needed. When I filed for unemployment, they at first turned down my claim. I made an appeal and gave all the proof I had for what happened. The investigator learned that I had worked for someone and been fired. It was ruled that my claim was not valid and my boss paid my unemployment until I found a much better job. Addendum. Before you think you know anything about the law, including employment law, you should talk to a lawyer. Where you are and where this happened have very different laws. Hey boy, the best story of my days. Before this, I was easy to get along with. During college, I worked at a store that did engraving. There were 3 full-time workers and 1 seasonal worker. We were a cool, close-knit group, got along great at work for a year, and had many drinks together after work. After that, my boss got pregnant and quit. When she did, she told me that the current assistant manager should be promoted and that I should become the assistant manager. I told her they agreed and sent her paperwork to begin the process. After a week, our new manager, a woman we've never seen before, shows up with the regional manager. The assistant manager was very angry when they told her they had no idea where she got the idea that she should be manager. She quit right then and there. During our busy season, it's just me, this new boss, and all the seasonal workers. The regional pulled me to the side and told me that this woman was from a clothing store chain and had no experience with our products or the skill of engraving. She also couldn't shut up. Afterwards, he asked me to please watch out for her and teach her the ropes as a favor. I agreed because I was a pushover and kinda hoped I'd still get the job as an assistant manager. He leaves and the shift still has 3 hours to go. I teach the new boss how to use the engraving machine as soon as I get her. Right away, she's overwhelmed. I go more slowly and give her very simple tasks where mistakes don't matter. Then I tell her to go play around with the machine. Just tell her to ask me anything. It makes sense for me to take care of the customers while she practices. Things don't go the way planned. She starts to cry and swear within a minute or two, and then throws the metal plate she was practicing on across the room. WTF? I figure she's too busy, so I take a customer's order and tell her to try again. I'll be right next to her so she doesn't have to worry about making a mistake because I can fix it before she does. First, she grabs the right holders, then she grabs the plate. So far, so good. Then she looks at it, looks at you, and looks. So I give her the plate and show her how to line it up. Then I step back and let her do it again. That's when everything went crazy. She gets angry with me like a banshee and starts yelling about how rude I am and how I'm trying to make her look bad by making her do a customer order when I should be doing it. I let her know that wasn't true and I was only teaching her. Then she threw the plate at me and kept going on and on about how she wasn't gonna put up with this from an underling. First, I screamed and cried for a minute in the bathroom. She knocked a few times and said she was sorry. Without saying a word, I left the bathroom and gave her my apron. I then walked across the hallway, it was in a mall, and hired the manager right away who had been trying to get me to work there for over a year. For the next month, we worked across the hall from each other. Whenever she gave me a dirty look, my new boss would smile and wave at her. Within 2 months, she was no longer there. The only job I ever quit. As an assistant director of a daycare, I worked with 2 other directors who were friends. For the first few weeks, I loved my job. Things got worse over time. When I got to work, they would give me useless, busy work to do instead of my real job, which was to run the daycare. One director did shady things that were against company policy, like using money to buy kegs for her parties and give some parents huge discounts on tuition, $100 a week for full-time 5-day work. She would make up hours on her time card to say she got there hours before she did. When no one was around, the other director was being mean to the kids. I was only thinking about how this corporate daycare would punish me if I told them about it. Every day this crap happened. I took a lunch break one day and was driving back to work when I was in a pretty bad accident. My car was totaled. It was clear that I couldn't go back to work that day or for a few days. They asked me straight out, "So you're not coming back today?" when I called to tell them what had happened. Not even a question of whether I was okay. Next, I go back to work a few days later. They both refused to talk to me, would not talk to me at all. When I looked at my schedule, I saw that they had put me in charge of a classroom instead of letting me do my supervisory work. After a few hours, when it was almost time for break, I went to the front desk to work. One co-director had to go somewhere, so she told the other co-director who was at the front desk next to me what was going on. He told her, "You should bring your phone with you in case you get into an accident and can't make it to work." I gave it a lot of thought before I quit. I knew I could find work as a substitute teacher the next day. I told them I was taking a break and drove straight to the agency where I do subs. Never effing went back again. I also told the boss that jerk was stealing company money by calling corporate. After 2 months, big company called me to come back and run the place since they had fired both of them. I didn't go, but it made me feel good. A few months later, the business closed that location. I'd love to hear some scary HOA stories, part 4. My dad bought a house with an HOA in 2015. He had never dealt with one before, but he is 50 years old now, so he is. My dad is very patriotic. He loves his country and the people who live in it. As a child, I never lived in a house that didn't have a flagpole in the front yard. There were usually flowers around it, and there was a big spotlight so the flag wouldn't have to be taken down at night or in the rain. It wouldn't be different in this house. Looked like the HOA didn't like it. My dad fought with them for about 2 years. He told everyone in town that he thought the people in charge of the HOA were crazy because who wouldn't let someone on American soil display our country's flag? For 2 years, he paid fines every month, until recently the service members who live in the same subdivision made such a fuss about it that they decided to stop charging him the fine. In the middle of the fight, though, my dad learned about a way for ham radio operators to get around HOA rules because the government was on their side. When I was a kid, my dad had a CB radio in his conversion van for when we went on trips, but never any ham gear. But as soon as he learned of the rule, he put up a 150-foot radio antenna next to his flag in his front yard. When they brought a letter to his house about it, I've never seen someone so angry. Also, I've never seen my dad smile so big and proudly. My roommates and I rented a nice 4-bedroom house. As long as our rent was paid on time, we hadn't heard from the owner or the HOA in months. That was about 8 months into our lease when I got home from work and saw a nice couple looking at everything on our property. When I asked them about it, they said they'd bought the house at an auction. After calling the landlord, he said he'd look into it. I told him not to believe them and went on with my day. We got a sheriff's eviction notice on our door the next day, giving us 1 week to leave. The landlord didn't answer the phone when we called. When we looked into it, we learned that the house had been used to pay a lien against the landlord for HOA fines that the previous tenant had not paid. This happened 1 month into our lease. The house was put on hold for 6 months and was quickly sold at auction. The last couple I talked about were the new owners, so they had the legal right to kick us out. To top it all off, the management company our landlord hired wouldn't return our security deposits because they couldn't check the house after we moved in. They gave us our deposits back after we told them we would take them to court over it and all the rent we had paid for a property they didn't have the legal right to manage. Oh my god. The only member of our HOA to attend the meeting was a guy on our board who goes by Chuck, I believe. Chuck then chose to be president. After that, he went from house to house with a clipboard and wrote down as much as he could. We got a ticket for having a trailer in the way, the split in the bricks in front of our house. Our next door neighbor doesn't clean up after his dog in our yard. The list was long, and not all of it was our fault or something we could have changed. 20 or more people were given tickets for having poorly maintained roofs the day after a hailstorm did a lot of damage in the area. Chuck said he would sue us because the trash can wasn't in the garage. It was just in front of the garage. The next HOA meeting was full of people, and Chuck was permanently banned from ever being in charge of the HOA. Apparently, there were less people in our neighborhood whom he did not threaten to sue than there were people who Chuck did threaten. Oh my god, the HOAs. I want to sell my condo because I hate working with the HOA, the office staff, and the board of directors. The rules, the fines, and warnings from the HOA cause me more fear and anxiety than almost anything else in my life. They've made renting a condo a living H, and I'm a good tenant. What a terrible thing for those who don't care and do whatever to get other people so angry. Other groups have never sent me more certified letters. Things I've been warned about and fined for. Leaving a candle outside and a coffee table for looks, putting up a picture frame on the covered deck, a false accusation that I parked my car in visitor parking. I don't know how they got away with this one. They had the make, model, and license plate of a car I'd never seen before, but someone they wouldn't name said it was mine, so I got fined. Also, the admin and I sent about 50 emails back and forth about how there's a fence around my building and we wouldn't be able to get out when they paved it. Even though I took pictures and marked the ones that didn't show an opening, she said she had seen it every week for years and knows there was a gate. She finally gave in after I took her to the property to show her, but she never gave us another way around to get out when they paved the road. And here I thought the HOA was good and looked out for everyone's best interests. Some HOAs are also racist because of things like property value. Someone I work with and am friendly with moved into my old neighborhood a few years ago. I thought the HOA was good for the neighborhood. There's no silly rules and the fees are not high. He believed it would be good for the family. During the week they were finalizing the deal to buy the house, the head of the HOA tried to stop the deal. His goal was to get the house's owner to sell it to someone else. We had an HOA meeting that week, which was lucky, and I made it my mission to find out why they didn't want to sell the house to my friend. What did he think? Why? Because my friend is from a poor area and this place wouldn't be good for them. He tried to say it in a way that made it sound like he was worried about the family and that they'd hate it and not fit in. That being said, why did he think my friend and his family lived in a poor area? It looked like they were Hispanic. In fact, my friend is half Hispanic. His Filipino wife is married to him and they have 2 very good preteens. Plus, my friend is a government-cleared network administrator who is very smart and very good at what they do. He was also an officer in the Army and has been in combat. Remember that the head of the HOA was in charge of a group of security officers in an office building. He always talks about how much money he makes, in the high 6 figures. For his scales, my friend makes a 6-figure salary. Heck, I made over $70,000 at my first job after leaving the military. There was silence in the room and I told the guy this in the meeting. The only reason he didn't want them to move in was because of the guy's race. I told him straight out. Because of this, not giving a veteran and well-liked man a home is an insult to all the other veterans in the neighborhood, and there were a lot of them. What's the cherry on top? A person on the board was of Hispanic descent. People thought she was white even though she was Panamanian and had brown hair and hazel eyes. In the following month, they voted the jerk out. If you want to watch the part 3, click the link here. Thank you for subscribing, the likes, and comments. We're very happy to see you all in the comments too. Thanks for your support.